So we must do two things, two great things together, to encompass that enormous new view that lies before us, but to encompass it within the framework of science, to see it within the whole categorical framework of science, and to see that these two are not separate, but that they are wedded. The bigness of the idea, the newness of the idea, the greatness of it is one with the structure of science, the structure of being itself. And so now, returning to our subject, which is spirit in Christian Science, at the point of B, spirit dealing with the supposed opposite. As the Christ works, we know that there's always an outcome, and it's the resolution of the whole matter. As we had said a little bit ago, that's Christianity. Christianity shows us now what the outcome is as spirit deals with its supposed opposite, and that is that dechemicalization, that all is dechemicalized. It's a saving process that is going on. And so chaos and crisis are resolved, and you know we're always on a higher ground after that, and after any experience like that. It's really what Noah experienced and what he symbolized in that second 1,000-year period of spirit. He got into that ark of understanding, and he rode over the floods, didn't he? He was face to face with the floods that covered apparently the whole earth. They just covered everything, and that's how it seems to be when we are in the midst of a great problem, that there is no dry land that we can put our foot on yet, and so there was no dry ground really in that Noah experience except the dry ground of the ark. That's where we have to set our feet and plant them there. And that ark was a symbol for understanding, the understanding of spirit. So what did he do? Did he keep getting in and out and checking, testing the waters and saying, oh, I wonder how deep these waters are and if I can wade through this experience? Did he, so to say, try out his water wings? No. He stayed in the ark. The solution was in that method of staying in the ark. And he kept looking up through the one window that he had, and that window was in the roof. Apparently there were no windows on the side, no possibility of looking out from that consciousness out upon the flood to evaluate it. He looked only up, and that's what we have to do. We have to look up to the heavens, which really for us is a symbol for looking up to science itself and to divine science and to absolute Christian Science and all that stands above our situation. Science, divine science, those are our heavens. Absolute Christian Science, they are all heavenly states of consciousness for us, and we have to look up to them and stay in that stronghold of understanding. And as we do that, something happens. We can't go into that full story, but it's a beautiful, beautiful story of how that standpoint and that method of spirit is going to bring us out on higher ground. So you see where the ark comes in. Ark is not an idea, it's a symbol. It's a symbol for ideas, for an idea specifically of spirit. But you hear what the symbol is symbolizing as a whole, and that is that this crisis state, this chaotic condition of not knowing, you see, not knowing, you know what a crisis condition is. You don't know which way things are going to go or should go. It's the worst feeling. It's just so uncomfortable. You don't know how it's going to go. But if we stay with the arc within our understanding of what, really? Of the 7 and the 4 and the 4, to stay with that to the best of our highest understanding, we can be sure that Spirit is working, that this is the field, the atmosphere, the consciousness within Spirit works, and that it's leading that situation, that it is separating rightly between opposites, not just separating in any old way, but in an ordered way. So the outcome is a dechemicalization, a coming back really to a homeostasis, to a steady state. But it's a new homeostasis at a new place because we have gone forward and we have gone higher. So coming back to normality, we could say, we kind of come back out of a situation and find some sense of normality, but that normality is on higher ground, as though we were somewhere else than where we began. Isn't that true? You only have to look at your own experience, and you know that these things are true and that they are scientific, that everything that's going on is scientific, and we can never go back. So Spirit makes us progress. It causes us to progress. And we feel that we're getting very near to soul now. You can hear that soul is just kind of inching in and coming in and suggesting itself and saying, hey, I'm coming along, and you're going to see what comes out of that beautiful order of mind and spirit, that I will show you that I rule everything. Soul must come in, it must follow Spirit, because when we get out of the ark, we find that we are on dry land again, and that we are on higher ground. Actually, you know that Noah was on the highest ground there was when he descended from the ark, that he was on Mount Ararat, and that even today the scientists say that is an indication that Mount Ararat is actually the highest point in that whole vast region where they claim to have actually found Noah's Ark. We don't know whether they have or not. It doesn't matter so much, but the symbols seem to be so exact. So we are taken higher in the order of Spirit. Everything is resolved, and it's at that point when we look back that we can reinterpret everything that has led us to this point, everything that was going on, reinterpret all those signs of chemicalization and chaos and crisis, and appreciate them for what they are in a system that is rendering progress irresistible. Progress is irresistible. It cannot be resisted. And therefore there is no resistance within us against the order that cannot be surmounted and resolved by Spirit and the science of Spirit. And so science comes in now. We're at that fourth point in the calculus, in the B, and science looks at the whole picture and says, well, you know, to my sense, all that has been going on through the Word and the Christ and Christianity is me. It's science. Science working to exclude the opposite. Science says, this is how I exclude the claim of any opposite. And so science once again looks back at the Word and the Christ and Christianity, all that activity going on, the input, the process, the output, and says that whole process of dealing with the suggestion of a supposed opposite is just me excluding the opposite. I exclude it. Yes. So Spirit, through its exclusiveness as the only, you see, that's why error can be excluded, because of the onlyness of Spirit. This is Spirit's exclusivity, and thus Spirit excludes and gets rid of everything that is unlike the divine nature. As you were saying to me at the break, it has all to do with that which must come before soul can enter the spotlight. Can you already feel how we're building something, a great substance really, a great reality, just through the nature of those first two synonymous terms, mind and spirit? And the more we go forward to soul and to principle, life, truth, and love, it's a profound thing. It's building the whole, you see, building the whole until we reach truth, where we have the whole. And then love comes in, love that can just glory, that glories in the perfection of that whole. So we never really have 2 feet in 2 different opposites, do we? We think that we have 1 foot still in the problem, but it's really both feet that are in Spirit, aren't they? So you see, whenever we go through something, we say we went through something. What we went through was the process of the calculus, really. Isn't that beautiful? Yeah. That's all we went through, that's all we ever can go through, is that calculus. We say, oh, I had a flood situation. And, you know, we describe a problem as a flood, to go through the flood. And then we come out the other side, and we say, well, we went through something, and we made it through, and we came through. Oh, thank God, I made it through. And I think it's lovely to see, lovely because scientific, to see that all we ever go through is that flow of the calculus, that cybernetic flow of the calculus, and we never leave that. We never leave that flow. It has within itself the quality of feedback, the assurance of feedback, that we're constantly fed to a higher and higher level and understanding of consciousness. That's the processing of the calculus. And as that is taking place, we are being changed, and it changes our outlook, changes our makeup, our constitution. It changes our goals and our values. You see, it's all really about our values. This is what Spirit is concerned with. What are your values, and do they need to be purified? Do they need to be changed? What do we consider to be of value, of worth? So we are changed, and these changes in us are what we see reflected forth in the sea of this level of Christian Science now, that we get those changes that are turning us into something different, something new. How we're at the point of C on the level of Christian Science, and really reflecting now in a whole different attitude and outlook what is really of value. So as the Word, now we take that through the calculus, that question of what are our values? How are we changed? How are we lifted higher? How are we becoming something else that is shaped by and reflecting Spirit and the whole quality of Spirit? So at the point of the Word, we would see that it's really awakening in us in a greater and greater degree that we want to put first things first. We want to put spiritual things first. We want to prioritize, we might say, to prioritize, and that spirit has a priority. Spirit always has priority. It's the prioritizing of spirit, which is always within us, that first things are first and that we put them first. That's where we put them. You see that in mind, we saw that mind is first and that we should turn to mind and so forth. But here it's not just knowing or thinking about or reciting the fact that mind is first, but it is giving to mind the quality of spirit, the quality of onlyness, that we put them first. Put those things first as our greatest value, as the only value, really. And that fact, that true priority, will actually prioritize everything else in our lives, you see. We don't have to think it out. It's an impact on us. It's an impact, and yet it's the impact of, at the point of our participation, our activity, our active input. So it's where we give back to Spirit that which Spirit is. Even our attitude then, it becomes the attitude of the impact of Spirit upon us. And here we go with that impact. We welcome that impact. We take it up. We can say, yes, I see. I really, really see. I really, really see the importance of the spiritual idea. And I want to put it first. You see, when you understand that, and you understand the importance of the spiritual idea, you can't help but to put it first. These characteristics or attitudes become for us that which we really now want for our lives, that we want to put first things first, that we feel a gratitude for Spirit. That's another attitude at the point of the Word, that we feel a gratitude for Spirit. Yeah. Immediately consciousness scans the whole of the calculus and says, could that be anywhere else? Could that be anywhere else? It seems that it could be, depending on what we mean. A meaning is relational, that we might see it, say, at the point of Christianity, where it would be seen as a terrific sense of reflection within us, of just reflecting upon and going over and over all the good that we have. So I just remind you to be a scientist, to weigh these things, try them out in the other categories, weigh them in the other categories. Don't be afraid to do that. And as you are true to your categories, and therefore to science, you will get the right answers, and you will see where there is a differentiation in the placing of these various terms. Anyway, at the present moment, we have gratitude for Spirit as something at the point of the Word in our own makeup. It's gratitude for the good already received. Gratitude for good. That's how the chapter on prayer would describe that quality, the spiritual quality of gratitude. It's to be grateful for the good that we have already, what we know already about the spiritual. And the textbook says, and that will thus fit you to receive more. It fits you to receive more. You have the feeling that it has something within it now that can multiply. It has like the seed within itself. So it hints toward the Christ. You see, it fits you to receive more. Actually, it would be the Christ then, you see, that would have that touch of the reproductive sense in it. I'm sorry. So many categories, huh? So many classifications and points of the system, and just listen to your Christ, your inner Christ that's giving you what you need at this particular moment. Okay, so to be grateful is a sense of reflecting on the good, isn't it? It's the reflection within us to reflect upon the good. It raises up in us trust in Spirit. Every experience, if we have given it the context of science with its categories, increases our trust in Spirit and makes us want to trust Spirit. And then we have some attitudes that perhaps have a touch of the Christ to them, have a touch of an activity, an action, something is moving, of the nature of Spirit. It's those qualities that show us how the Word expresses itself. Namely, we see that what comes in is the discernment of Spirit, to be discerning, that it makes us discerning in every situation. Spirit giving us the quality to be discerning in any situation, to take the standpoint of discerning from Spirit. You see, not taking the material standpoint, not taking the ordinary human standpoint, the mortal standpoint, to discern and weigh from the standpoint of the spiritual idea. So we weigh every situation spiritually. I think that's the discernment of Spirit. And another attribute or characteristic from the standpoint of the Christ, always turning to Spirit. What do we have there? Yes, turning to Spirit, turning away from matter, you see. These are active things within our own consciousness, that we actually do something, striving spiritually. It shows us that it's not a ho-hum thing, it's not static. If we didn't have the Christ coming in to qualify, to set that word into expression within us, then we would have just a static sense, a ho-hum sense of things. But it's where we take part in what the Word is. We take part in our own salvation, you see, by turning to Spirit, turning away from matter and the material concept and circumstances. Striving spiritually, this is something of the Christ within us, to really work for it, you see, to work spiritually for it, to strive for it. That's not a negative thing, it's positive. It has a great deal to do with what we refer to as, yes, you see, even this discernment, the turning to and turning away. Those have a great deal to do with that sense of drawing the dividing line. We talk about that, between opposites. It's the firmament of the second day within us, and that all belongs to the striving spiritually, that we are working spiritually for the good, and that is a most positive thing. And then we see that we have that term, mourning, to mourn, the mourning of Spirit. Where do we find this term? Where does this term come from? Would you be able to recall that? Janet? Spirit. From Spirit, yes. And do you know it from any of the Bible teachings? Sure. Yes, the Beatitudes. And it just happens to be, it's a coincidence that it happens to be the second Beatitude. Actually, there are no coincidences. There's only science. And so that second Beatitude is well known to us. It's, "Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted." Blessed, blessed are they that mourn. And mourning is a term that really conveys a process. Again, a process of spirit. And it's the process of separation, of leaving something behind, or of seeing that something has been finished, has drawn to a close, has fulfilled its place value, leaving something behind, we can say, although we never leave anything behind in the system. It's gathered up, it's taken up, it's carried forward, but in a new light, from a new standpoint. So what looks like leaving something behind is not really so, but we see it and understand it in its place value, and we don't try to carry it along and drag it along and interject it into another place value other than its own. That has so much to do with everything in our lives as we go forward and are moved forward. It has to do with our concepts and the stages that we go through and the ages that we go through, that we are able to recognize and to understand when something has fulfilled its role as a concept or a stage or an age. So it can be leaving an old paradigm behind, you see. What kind of an attitude do we have toward the paradigms of our present model of understanding, or any given model of understanding? Do we want to drag that along with us, throughout the whole of our lives, that we only have one standpoint and we carry that through and we never entertain the possibility of something new coming in? Or can we actually see that we honor and respect any given paradigm by understanding when it has fulfilled its place value in a whole development, in the whole order of the unfoldment of spirit? So it has very much to do with leaving old landmarks behind, no matter which aspect of our life we consider that in. If we understand that spirit is the ordering principle, that it orders everything, it brings these separations, which are not negative, they're not sad, but they indicate really the movement of the order of spirit. And as we do that and are true to that ordering process, we will be comforted. How are we comforted? My gosh, it's by the new thing coming in, huh? When that which is new, when the next stage, the next age, the next place value comes in, what a comfort. And then we see that we haven't left anything behind, that we can't leave anything behind that is of worth and worthwhile to us, of value in the whole order, the whole spiritual order of our being. Even in the so-called loss of a loved one, you will see that if you take the standpoint of spirit, of science, and the science of spirit, you will begin to understand that nothing is working but the divine order for you and for that loved one, and that there is no separation in that sense. That in spirit, the separating process, the mourning process, doesn't mean that we are separated from something that is good, something that we love, and that this would be some kind of a blessing. But the mourning is to be willing to see that order of spirit which is going on, isn't it? And when we love the order and we acknowledge the order as the only thing going on, then we experience that we are comforted by spirit. Comforted by the fact, really, that everything is a spiritual question, and that the evolution of spirit never stops, the progress of spirit never stops because of any experience, that it is enhanced for us by every experience. It's a beautiful beautiful thing. Okay.